Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success, we hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good and the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Rafe, and I'm going solo this week, and I'll be doing that for a couple weeks here. Zach is working on some other projects for a couple weeks, and he's taking a hiatus, leave of absence, a little time to catch his breath and take care of some other things. So it's just going to be me for a while, and occasionally some guests. You know the kinds of guests that we have. I'm hoping it will be a good time. It will be all the same but different, as they say, talking about the things that we talk about. But Zach will be in the background doing the kinds of things that he does on a regular basis. But he probably won't be in the studio here for a while. So that is all good. That is not a problem. We shall continue on. So we were visiting Zach last week up in Minnesota for Thanksgiving. And driving back from Minnesota to Indiana, we hit some rain showers in northern Indiana, and it was interesting because the sun was setting to my right, to the west, and the rain showers were pretty much overhead a little bit to the east. And I said to myself, "Wait, we got rain and we have sun, and I'm between the rain and the sun. I'll bet I will see a rainbow." And good golly, Miss Molly, there was one of the biggest rainbows I've ever seen, and one of the brightest rainbows I've ever seen. It was huge. It went ground up into the sky and all the way back down to the ground, full and complete. And then, of course, I wonder if it's a double. And yes, it was. So we got a double rainbow. And of course, I was driving, and Michelle was saying, things like, keep your eyes on the road and don't hit the truck. And I was like, but look, it's a double rainbow. And it was interesting because I've seen lots of rainbows in all my years, and I have seen quite a few double rainbows, not quite as many as I've seen full single rainbows. But the double ones are fun to see, and it's really nice to see when they are as big and grand as this one was. And the extra outer ring, I guess there's normally the inner ring, and the outer ring is sometimes there. But it was interesting to me because I noticed as I was driving, don't tell anybody this is what I was doing while I was driving. I noticed that the inner ring went Roy G. Biv. Okay, went red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. The red was on the outside, and then the bluey parts, the BIV, the blue, indigo, violet stuff was on the inside. Okay, so when you went from the outside of the inner ring to the inside of the inner ring, you went through the Roy G. Biv. But the outer ring is opposite of that. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, of course the outer ring's doing that. I never knew that. So of course I looked at this, and suddenly I realized that the outer ring went Roy G. Biv from inside to outside. The Roy, the red, orange, and yellow is on the inside of the outer ring, and the Biv part, the blue, indigo, violet, is on the outside of the outer ring. And I thought this is wonderful. So of course I'm driving and avoiding semis and looking at the double ring, and Michelle is looking this up on Wikipedia because that's what I have her do when I'm driving, and I say, hey, look this up and tell me if this is right. So and she pointed out in particular, yes, Wikipedia page does actually say that when you have a double ring, you will have the outer ring is different in that it's reversed. I don't know if it's reflected. It's just different. Okay, it's different than the inner ring. And these two things are not. I thought they would be parallel rings, but they're not. They are mirror images of each other. And I'm sure some physicists will tell me exactly why that is the case. But for the time being, while I was driving in the car through northern Indiana at the end of my trip from Minnesota down to Indy, I just appreciated the fact that it was a gloriously beautiful, well lit double rainbow, and I was almost home. So I'm always learning something, and I was very happy to learn these things, both empirically through seeing things, and through a book, through the Wikipedia thing, and for that I felt grateful. And I started thinking about gratitude. And the first thing I thought is, a number of things about gratitude. And I would be bereft if I did not thank our listeners now. Our listeners are always there for us, and we are grateful for that. So thank you for being here. We are a global top 10% podcast here at Bufnagle the Podcast. And you know the spiel. We're all over the web. Look us up on Bufnagle and hit the smiley star button. Give us 5 stars and happy thoughts and things like that. And Zach gets brownies and I get pudding, and there's the spiel. Okay, thank you for being here. We do appreciate you. But in particular, I was thinking about gratitude today, about the rainbow, and I started thinking about why we say thank you. What do those words mean? All the languages that I've heard over time, they have different ways to say thank you. We say gracias in Spanish. A lot of people know how to say that. They'll say that maybe, you want to be in with somebody that speaks Spanish. So you say gracias and they can wink at you and give you a thumbs up because they realize that's you can say in Spanish. And a similar thing happens when you go to French. When I was in Paris, when I felt grateful and obliged to somebody, I said merci, and they winked at me and went on their merry way. Danke in German, we say that. Danke schön. That's a song, right? And that's it's an old song, but it was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. They sang Danke schön. In Chinese, some of my Chinese friends taught me that it's xie xie ni, something like that. I'm sure the accents, I put them in the wrong place, but I hope that's close enough. And Harry, I've looked this one up. Someone told me this one time, but in Russian, it's something like spasiba, right? And it means quite literally means God save you. So it's a very nice thing to say to somebody. When they do something nice for you, you say in Russian, you say God save you, which is a very nice way of saying thank you. And I thought about these words and what they mean to, what I do now that I'm old. You guys you know where this is going, right? All right. So in addition to the word please, these words, thank you, or gracias, or merci, they recognize and establish our dependence on the other person. All right. So you do something nice for me, I say thank you. And the reason I say that is because I recognize my situation relative to you is I am indebted. I'm trying to establish some kind of humility. I say, I know that I need you. Okay. And you do that with please, actually, before you get something. You say, please give me the cookie. And that is a way of saying, I need you. I need you to give me the cookie. And after you get the cookie, you say thank you, which establishes that indebtedness. And this is a fundamentally human thing to do. This dependence, this humility, this recognition of where we sit in relation to others. And this is fundamentally human. And it's necessary for us to really act civilly and to have a comfortable society. Okay. So we say, I need you when we say please. And after we get it back, we say, I recognize that I am indebted to you. So those are what the words mean. And that's a nice thing to recognize. And that's a good thing. But the other question I have is, what should our response be to being thanked? Okay. Let's say you ask me for the cookie. You recognize that you are in a position where you need me to get the cookie, and I provide it, and you say thank you. And I have an opportunity now to be gracious in my response. And the response, I think the response is really important. I think the response, instead of just, it should be at least, at minimal, it should be a you're welcome. It should be a statement that acknowledges and respects the humility that the thanker is taking upon him or herself to do that, to do the thanking, to recognize the obligation, right? If you end up saying, if I give you the cookie and you say thank you, and I say, it's no biggie, no problem, right? If I say something kind of offhandish like that, as if it wasn't a big deal, I don't think that's sufficient. And the reason I don't think that is I don't think that respects fully the gratitude of the thanker, right? We have an obligation to recognize that this person has subjugated themselves through this humble act, and we have an obligation to, we are obligated to them to recognize that. Okay. So something like, it was my pleasure. You are very welcome. I am so glad that you asked. All of these are ways to be gracious in a situation where people have opened themselves to you and they have put themselves in a position where they are now at your mercy. So when you are thanked, please take the opportunity to let people know that you appreciate that and you recognize the situation that they are in. So you're welcome. It was my pleasure. So we have a thank you and we have a you're welcome. But I think it's important to note the role of the giver in these exchanges. Okay. So if I ask you for the cookie, I should have had a better analogy here. If I ask you for the cookie, all right, and you give me the cookie, okay, you giving me the cookie requires an act of will on your part. Okay, the giver, you have decided to do this. You have decided to take on an action. All right, through your will, this is something that you've decided that you are going to do. This is not a necessary thing to do. You don't have to do this. All right, you don't have to give me the cookie. You could say no. I'm going to keep the cookie. All right, and obviously, then I won't say thank you. I might be snarky and say, well, thank you very much, and be sarcastic. But if I'm polite, and if you are polite, you will proceed with an act of your will, and you will give me the cookie. Okay. We don't thank the apple for falling from the tree. All right, because that's just what the apple does. There's no choice there. There's no will of the giver. It's just a thing that happens. But gratitude on the part of the thanker recognizes and acknowledges that the giving was an act of the will. You don't have to pass me the salt. You don't have to help me with my homework, right? You don't have to teach me how to tie my shoes, but you do that. That is something you have chosen to do, and you do it freely. All right. We don't say thank you when someone is forced to help you. All right. We do that when we recognize that these people have done these things on their own. So when I need or want what you have, and you are generous enough to oblige me, all right? Oblige comes from this Latin word ob, which means toward, and ligare, which means to bind. So when we are obliged, we are bound up, we are tied together, okay? When you oblige me, we have been bound together, okay? And I think this is kind of an interesting thing about the words like obligation, okay? And I've talked in the recent past about the Queen and about my mother-in-law, about how they both demonstrated obligation and duty in the past, all right? And how we have duties to ourselves, we have duties to our family members, to our communities, to our country, all right? And these bindings that we take on, these obligations that we have, these are human entanglements, all right? The expressing of gratitude for the act of will that was performed on our benefit. That's an obligation we have. We are called. We are tied to do this. This is a thing that a civil society requires. Okay, gratitude is a fundamental and necessary component of civil society. You will not have a civil society if you cannot be grateful, right? If you cannot express that gratitude, okay? Appreciation of an act of will fulfills a bond, okay? It is your component of that ligature, of that tying together that that keeps society functioning. All right, so where's all this going? Okay, so here's where you may be thinking about this. So all of this is about gratitude and about Thanksgiving, where we were last week. And I thought, where does this come from? What is this thing about a holiday of Thanksgiving? Okay, this American feast, and it's an American feast in the turkey and football sense, but people all over the world and since the beginning of time have expressed these ideas of a special celebration for giving thanks. In 1789. Newly elected first president of the United States, George Washington, he laid the groundwork for our preliminary Thanksgiving setup. Okay, 1789. Washington's the first president, and in October, I think it was October, he said that he was going to set aside the 26th of November for Thanksgiving. And Lincoln and Roosevelt also did some things to establish what day is this going to be. Is this an act of Congress? Is this official, federal holiday? Should there be football, or should there be sales the next day? All that stuff kind of came out over time. But in 1789, George Washington, the man who not only was the best president, but he defined how to be president, and one of the things he did was establish this Thanksgiving proclamation. He gave this proclamation in October and told us how to do Thanksgiving. So what's important is that, remember, giving gratitude assumes that there's a giver that acted through the giver's will, that there was an act of will by another. Okay, there was a giver who acts. We can't just be thankful. You have to be thankful toward someone. Washington did precisely this in his Thanksgiving proclamation of 1789. Whereas, he said, it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey his will, to be grateful for his benefits, and humbly to implore his protection and favor. And whereas both houses of Congress have by their joint committee requested me to recommend to the people of the United States a day of public thanksgiving and prayer to be observed by acknowledging with grateful hearts the many signal favors of Almighty God, especially by affording them an opportunity peaceably to establish a form of government for their safety and happiness. And he goes on and talks another paragraph up. It's going to be on the 26th of November and so on and so forth. But he recognizes that you can't express gratitude without recognizing there is somebody to receive the gratitude, somebody who acted through will, right? And I think to just be thankful is thin. It skips the elephant in the room. All that we have been given has been given to us by somebody through an act of will, right? The apple just falls from the tree, but somebody made it fall from the tree. There are things that we have, things that we have been given, that have been given to us through a willful giver. And that's an important thing to recognize. So for everything that we have, from rainbows to double rainbows, to the food we eat and the families we visit, and a world filled with wonder and hope, we remain thankful to God. And he smiles back at his grateful people, to his sons and daughters, and he says, "You're welcome. It was indeed my pleasure." That is the relationship we are seeking to establish here when we build our civil society. So, now that Thanksgiving's over, just keep in mind that you remember to be thankful and that you seek the good, be the good, and spread the good, and enjoy the adventure of life.